daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Liverpool podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. I'm Jesse Sarwar. The transfer window is now officially closed, and what a window it has been for the Premier League in general, but for us as Liverpool supporters, I think it goes firmly under the unprecedented category. So today, as the dust has now settled from the chaos of the last couple of days, I thought we'd take stock and look at the players that have come in and the players that have left and what this transfer window means for us as a club moving forward. So let's take a quick look at the players that have come in and the ones that have left us. The departures, let's go through that first. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold was the big one. It was a free transfer. He ended up getting £10 million. So I think the club did reasonably well just to get something out of that transfer. Quaveen Kelleher left. I think we've got something like £20 million for that. Nat Phillips went to West Brom. Money came in for that. Jarrell Kwanzaa, we got about £35 million to buy Leverkusen. Luis Diaz was around about the £65 million mark. Tyler Morton, which I think a lot of Liverpool fans were a bit disappointed to see leave for like €10 million. I thought there was a lot more to come from Tyler Morton. Darwin Núñez, again, I thought we got good money for Núñez going to Al Hilal. I don't think there was any surprise that he left. Ben Doak, £25 million to Bournemouth. Again, great business from the club. And I think if you want any kind of reason as to why Liverpool were able to go out so aggressively and spend so much money, I think that deal, the Ben Doak deal, is, I think, reflective of the way that this club is run. That we can sell a player that hardly played for us and get £25 million for him. So, great business there from the club. James McConnell went out on loan to Ajax, which I think is a good move for him. I think he's a really talented player, a really talented midfielder, and I think going to Ajax, he could do much, much worse in terms of just getting game time, building his fitness, his physicality, building his game intelligence. Ajax is a great environment for that. Kostas Tsimikas gone to Roma on loan. I think there's an option to buy at the end of the season. Again, I think a very good move for Kostas. He's been a good servant for Liverpool. He's always, I thought, done very well when he came on. He was never first choice. He was always understudy to Robertson, and so with Milos Kerkez coming in, we don't need three left backs, and he was definitely third in that list of left backs. So made complete sense for him to leave, and he goes with our best wishes. So good move for Tsimikas. And then Harvey Elliott on deadline day gets a move to Aston Villa on loan. I think the option to buy is at £35 million at the end of the season. And again, kind of mixed emotions. I'm sad to see him go because he is for us, he's a homegrown player. He's a Liverpool fan from when he was a kid, and he's got a lot of talent. He's still really young. But he, particularly under Arne's slot, it just looked like he wasn't going to get game time. So I think for his sake, for his career, I think it was the right move. And, hopefully, he really kind of blossoms at Aston Villa. I think it's a good environment for him. I think Villa is a club that have done really well in the last couple of seasons, particularly under Unai Emery, and I think he's a fantastic coach. And so he's going to a club where I think that he will really kind of excel and grow. So I'm pleased for Harvey Elliott. And in terms of the players that have come in, obviously Jeremy Frimpong was the first one from Bayer Leverkusen, I think £29 million. Milos Kerkez came in from Bournemouth at 40 million. And then the big one, Florian Wirtz, came in from Bayer Leverkusen. I think it was about £115 million. Mamardashvili, the goalkeeper from Valencia, I think we officially signed him last season, but he was on loan there. So his contract kicked in at July 1st. This year, he was in from Valencia for around about £25 million. Hugo Ekitike came in from Eintracht Frankfurt for about £70 million, I think it was. And then Giovanni Leone from Parma, a young centre-back, very, very, very highly rated, and really an exciting signing for us, I think. I'm really looking forward to seeing him get some kind of game time. And we'll see, obviously, we'll speak about some of the targets that we missed out on, which I think will have an impact on the kind of game time that Leone will potentially get this season. And then the big one, the real big one, I said Florian Wirtz was the big one, but the real big one was deadline day. Alexander Isak finally got over the line, £125 million. What a signing, what a transfer window. But I think let's start with the transfer that didn't happen, and that was Mark Gay, the Crystal Palace captain, centre-back, England international. Fee agreed at £35 million between the clubs. Terms agreed between Liverpool and the player. Medical passed. Paperwork submitted. Everything is going well. And then Palace at the death refused to sanction the deal. Just pulled the plug on the whole thing. Now, what set all of this in motion was that the replacement that Crystal Palace tried to get in was the Brighton centre-back, Igor. He was earmarked as the Mark Gay replacement. But Igor decided to go to West Ham at the death instead of Palace, which meant Palace were kind of left high and dry. And a meeting took place between Palace owner Steve Parish and the manager Oliver Glasner. And if all the reports are to be believed, Glasner really put his foot down, insisting that his captain stay. And if he didn't, if the club sold Gahey, that he would walk. So effectively putting a gun to the head of Crystal Palace and saying, look, you've got to keep him. Now, on one level, I understand from Glasner's point of view that they haven't got the replacement in, and so he doesn't want to massively weaken a team that's already lost Eze to Arsenal without getting the sufficient replacements in. But you've got to ask yourself, what were Crystal Palace doing over the last few weeks when it was clear that Liverpool were in for Gay and they wanted Gay, and it was obviously clear that Mark Gay wanted to come to Liverpool. There was also a clear statement by Steve Parish that Crystal Palace could not afford for Mark Gay to leave at the end of next season on a free transfer, because Crystal Palace are just not the kind of club that can wave away £35 million. So it all lent itself to Crystal Palace sanctioning this move and letting Mark Gay join Liverpool, which was his wish. But on the other hand, I do think that the way that they've treated Mark Gay, their captain, I think is really poor. And we'll talk a bit more about the way players have conducted themselves this transfer window in terms of getting the move that they want. A lot of talk. We won't talk about it later. We'll talk about it now. A lot of talk around Alexander Isak, around Johan Wissa, and their agitation to move to the club that they want to move, and effectively downing tools, not training, not playing. And that was kind of roundly condemned. And I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying that that's the right way to go about it. But those players got their moves. Alexander Isak got his move to Liverpool. Johan Wissa got his move to Newcastle. And there is Mark Guéhi, who's acted impeccably. He's been the model professional. He's never stopped training. He's turned out for his club at Premier League level. He's turned out for his club in Europe. He scored an absolute worldie last weekend and just conducted himself professionally. And yet when he wants to pursue his career goals, he's treated in this way where he's, I say, kind of really embarrassed and humiliated on the last day of the transfer window, where he's done his medical. He's waved goodbye to the Crystal Palace fans. He's issued a statement saying that it was a great honour playing and captaining Crystal Palace. And now he's going to walk out and play for Crystal Palace again, knowing that the move that he wanted has just fallen through. So it's all very well for people to criticise and complain players when they kick up a fuss and, down tools or not train. But maybe it just shows that that's the only way to really, really get your move. But I thought it was poor from Oliver Glasner as well to threaten the club with his resignation. He could be sacked in 2 months. That's the precarious nature of the Premier League. Most managers, particularly in the kind of position that Crystal Palace are at, they're 3, 4, 5 games away from being sacked. And if Palace go on a terrible run and they're in the bottom 3, then what? He gets sacked, and he's cost his club £35 million, which they desperately need. And if they do get a new manager coming in, he's prevented that manager from having £35 million to invest in the squad. So I think it's pretty poor from Glasner, from Palace all round. But, we can't complain about the window. It's their prerogative. If they want to sell their player, they sell him. If they don't, it's fine. The thing is, they'll probably lose him for nothing come the summer, or if he does go in January, it'll be peanuts. It'll be like £10 million. So that's on Crystal Palace. So let's look at the ones that did materialise. Alexander Isak, that was the big one. He flew into Liverpool on deadline day to complete his move. £125 million, fixed fee, no add-ons. As I said, he's got his move after a controversial standoff with Newcastle United after he spoke of broken promises. And, he's got his move. I know that a lot of Newcastle fans are really unhappy and they think that he's behaved terribly, and the rank hypocrisy of that, because they've signed Johan Wissa, who did exactly the same that Alexander Isak did. He didn't turn out for his club. He refused to play. I've heard some people say, well, he's trained. Clubs don't buy you to train. They buy you to play football. And it's no good training and then refusing to turn out for your team. So I think that it just shows the kind of hypocrisy that is in football. And I guess we all do it as supporters. We want the players to come and join us, and we don't really mind how they join us, and then we complain when they leave us. But we've got him now, and all of that aside, it's a huge, huge signing for Liverpool Football Club. I think this is our most exciting number 9 signing for such a long time. I'm trying to think back, because if you think about the Klopp era, we didn't really play a traditional number 9. It was Bobby Firmino in that more kind of withdrawn false 9 position with wide forwards like Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane complementing that attack. You've got to go back to maybe Suarez, but even Suarez wasn't an out-and-out like a target man number 9. You might even have to go back to Fernando Torres. I think Isak is more in that a kind of style of striker, more Torres than he is Suarez. So I think it's a long time since we've had a striker of that caliber come into Liverpool, partly because of where we were and partly because of the tactical makeup of the team. So I think it's a really exciting signing and it signals real intent. I mean, this is Liverpool saying, we're here to score goals and we're here to win things. And that's backed up by the other players that we've signed. Ekitike, £70 million from Eintracht Frankfurt. This one was a surprise because if for all the world it looked like Ekitike was being lined up by Newcastle as a replacement for Alexander Isak. So I've got to say, I do love the way that Liverpool just flexed this and, kind of said to the Geordies, you know what? We're going to take Ekitike and then we'll come back and then we're going to take Isak off of you as well. A massive power play from the Reds, and I love it. We are the biggest club in England, and finally we're acting like it. And what a start Ekitike has had. 3 games in the Premier League, 2 goals, 1 assist. He scored in the Community Shield, so a really, really positive start for him. And he looks really composed. He's a lot bigger than I thought he was, and so he adds to Liverpool's aerial threat alongside Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahima Konate and Cody Gakpo, which is a really good thing because it just gives us another element to our game, both in terms of attacking set pieces like corners, but also defending them as well. And we saw that against Arsenal. We saw that Liverpool really, really stood up to Arsenal's, set piece bombardment. And another thing I like about Ekitike, I like his temperament. He was at the Newcastle game. He was being pushed and bullied and provoked by the likes of Joe Linton and Ekitike. He just laughed it off. You see, look at the clips. He just laughs it off and just carries on and scores. And it's Joe Linton that goes off in tears. So I really like his temperament, and I think that this time last season, if that was Darwin Núñez, he probably would have exploded and got a red card. So I think I'm really impressed so far with what I'm seeing with Ekitike, and I didn't think he was going to be as impactful so quickly. I thought it would take a lot longer for him to kind of get acclimatized to Liverpool and to the Premier League. And so how he links up with Isak, with Salam, with Wirtz, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops. And talking of Wirtz, he was the other big one, £115 million. He's the golden boy of German football. It really made waves that we signed Wirtz ahead of Bayern Munich, because whenever a young German prospect emerges, it is Bayern Munich that invariably sign him. And this is the first time that I can ever think where a German player has snubbed Bayern Munich. And we've got him. I think that he's, you can see that there is going to be a period of adaptation for Wirtz. He's come into a really, really physical league. And Arne Slot kind of alluded to as much after the game, where I think Wirtz was substituted with what looked like cramp. And when he was asked post-match in terms of an update on Wirtz's fitness and whether the injury was serious, he just said it was cramp, and that Wirtz has got cramp in places that he didn't know existed. So that's just an indication of how physically demanding the Premier League is, and it's going to be. And the games are going to come thick and fast after this international break. this is where it starts to ramp up. This is where you're going to have the Champions League fixtures coming into play, the domestic competitions, the League Cup will start, and then in January the FA Cup will start. So it's going to be an unrelenting pace in terms of fixtures. So, Wirtz, he's got 3 games under his belt. He's going to go away now on international duty, and I think he'll come back better. And slowly but surely, you'll see that quality, that class come through, and it's inevitable because he is a quality player. Looking through the other players that we've signed, Milos Kerkez and Jeremy Frimpong. Those were the 2 early signings as well in the window, and that kind of represented the kind of refresh in those fullback areas. Frimpong coming in, fresh off the heels of Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving for Real Madrid, and Milos Kerkez coming in, and that obviously signalled, I won't say the end of Andy Robertson by no means, but there is a changing of the guard there. I've already mentioned that Kostas Tsimikas has left the club on loan to Roma, and so that leaves us with 2 left backs. One of them who's a vastly experienced player and is our vice captain now, Andy Robertson, and now the young pretender, Milos Kerkez. And again, there's going to be a period of adaptation for Kerkez. This is a real step up for him playing for Liverpool. And, he's going to be playing Champions League football soon. And, the first couple of games against his former team, Bournemouth, and then Newcastle were pretty tough and were a stiff examination. But, he came through the Arsenal game. I thought he was massively improved there. So, that's a player that can only get better. He's young. He's 23. Similarly with Jeremy Frimpong. And I think Frimpong is quite an interesting one as well, because Frimpong was used more as a wing-back and sometimes as a wide forward for Leverkusen and for the Dutch national team. And so you do think ahead of the months to come, where during the winter period, where Mohamed Salah will be off to AFCON. And so Frimpong, I think, gives Arne Slot another component to that attack out on the right. It doesn't have to be Chiesa. It doesn't have to be Ekitike moving out there. It could be Frimpong. Now that we've got not just Conor Bradley at right back, but Dominic Szoboszlai has shown us that he could probably be the best right back in the world as well. So, that's just another example, I think, of the options that have opened up now for Arne Slot tactically and in terms of personnel moving forward. Armin Pesci has also come in, young goalkeeper. I think he's one to look out for as well. You can see that, Liverpool are building for the future, and a lot of these signings, point to that. So is this the start of a Liverpool dynasty? That's what the talk is at the moment. Liverpool have been very smart in the transfer window. We've gone for real heavy investment this summer, partly because, we've kept our powder dry for a few transfer windows. And so, we had money to spend. We're well within the PSR limits. Some of the other expenditures that we had, like the stadium renovation, expansion, is done. The AXA training facility is done. So, FSG have, I think, managed Liverpool really well in terms of they've built a club that was obviously had a massive global fan base. But it was, it's where Manchester United are now. And United have probably got to look to Liverpool for inspiration in terms of how to turn a historic club, how to turn it around and turn it into a modern 21st century football club, because that's what we are now. Whereas Manchester United seem to be stuck in the 1990s. And so I think FSG had done a great job in building the kind of infrastructure and putting the club on a really kind of firm footing financially, so that we are now able to spend. But it wasn't actually ridiculous amounts, bearing in mind that I think we brought in about £230 million in terms of sales. So in terms of our net spend, I think it's still less than Arsenal's. And Arsenal spent about £250 million this summer and have brought in 5 million. So if you look at it over a longer period of time, if you look at it over the last 10 years, we're not even in the top 5 of spenders in the Premier League. That's how well we've been managed. That's how well we've managed our finances and our resources, so that when the opportunity does come, we're able to spend like this without it really hurting us. But I think what it means, though, is that, I think we've spent heavy this summer, and we've been very smart in that, in the sense that next summer is a World Cup summer. And we all know that prices are going to be inflated, and there's going to be 10, 15, 20 million pounds added onto the price of a lot of players. And so we've got our business done now. You won't see this kind of expenditure now every transfer window or every summer. Liverpool will revert to a more fiscally prudent transfer policy. The odd player coming in to replace outgoings, maybe Mark Gay coming in January for a nominal fee or as a free agent in the summer. And so all this kind of talk, I hear opposition fans saying that, Liverpool are buying the league. Well, we didn't spend anything last season, so what was that? If we're buying the league this season, we will have already won the league and didn't spend a penny. So I'd say that we're probably the best run club in football, certainly in the Premier League. And, we've just got ourselves, I think, in a very, very good position. And we've got ourselves into this position by being smart off the pitch and being excellent on it. So, the rest of football can just cry and watch for all I care. So is this a revolution or is it evolution? Because, there's been a lot of change. I think this is the revolution before the evolution. Liverpool are kind of putting all the pieces in place. You see Mahmoud-Ashfali and Pessi coming in and securing that kind of goalkeeping position as Alisson, goes further into his 30s, still the best goalkeeper in the world, but we've future-proofed that position. Frimpong and Kirkes, as I've mentioned, they've renewed those fullback positions. We've got Leone, who, in Italy, they are looking at him as a generational defensive talent. They're already talking about a new Paolo Maldini. I know that's dangerous to do, but I think we've got a real player there, and someone that can, I think, grow into that position as Van Dijk. Again, he moves into, the mid-30s as well. And you look at the rest of the players, Florian Wirtz obviously is very young, Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, they're all young. Ekitike, Isak, Gakpo's just signed an extension. And you can see that the average age of all of those kind of areas of the pitch has been brought down. And you can see also that the core of experienced players, I think, will begin to evolve as well. So in the same way that at the moment we've got Alisson, Robertson, Van Dijk, Salah, those are our kind of, leadership players. They're the senior players. And I think slowly over the next couple of seasons, you'll see them give way to the likes of McAllister, who I think is a future captain. Szoboszlai, he's a captain of Hungary. People forget this. We've got captains in this team. Cody Gakpo, Gravenberch. You'll see these guys move in to become the core senior players, driving this team, pushing this team, and making sure that the standards that have been set are maintained. So I think it's been an absolutely fantastic transfer window. for Liverpool. I know that a lot of people were disappointed about Mark Gay, but I think we're okay. I think we've got the numbers now in defence, in centre back, and I want to give a quick mention to Joe Gomez as well, because Joe Gomez, he was linked with AC Milan, and apparently they put a £10 million bid in for Joe Gomez, and again, apparently Arne Slot said no, that he doesn't want to get rid of Joe Gomez. And I think his little cameo against Arsenal, I think, shows you exactly why managers like Jurgen Klopp and now Arne Slot value Joe Gomez so much. And I'm really, really pleased that he's stayed. And look, if we get an injury to Joe Gomez, if we get an injury to Ibrahima Konate, there's Dominic Szoboszlai. I'm sure he can play at centre-back as well. But that's all for today. You've been listening to the Daily Liverpool podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network, I should say. Please support the show by following us wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.